is spraying our streets and our parks and our estates with this poison. It's carcinogenic. And somebody around here had a placard saying the WHO has connected it last week with being carcinogenic. This is an extraordinary poisonous corporation. However, individuals can do something about this. In 1996, I campaigned in Southern. One person wrote and campaigned as a council and said, you must stop poisoning this effect. And the council took action. And to this day, our parks, at least in Southwark, are not sprayed with glyphosate. It is possible for you to take action. 20 years of our parks being naturally weed maintained. So write when you go home today, just a simple action. Write to your local council and say, are you spraying our streets and our parks with glyphosate? If so, can you please stop it, because it's pouring carcinogenic stuff into our streets where our children are playing. So let's go on to the corporate. Why is this happening? Why is a major corporation like this being allowed to spray poisons not only on our streets and our parks, but on our food, and now poisoning the very core of life, our genes? The reason is because I would say to somebody who's been within the political system, is corporate capture of democracy. We do not live in a true democracy. I can tell you that from personal experience from within the Liberal Democrats, the top of which under Charles Kennedy and under Nick Clegg, it was actually supposedly from the bottom up a Democratic Party, but around the top there was a bevy of corporate lobbyists, and they were the ones who called the shots, not the Democratic people in the party or the people voting for them. And GM is a classic example. When I was a deputy chair and member of the board of the party, I decided I want to tackle GM issues. I was appalled as a former scientist. Remember, we are not here as anti-scientists, we're pro-science. And the more you know about the science, studies have shown, the more people know about the science of GM, the more they oppose it. I did biochemistry, anatomy and physiology in university. I am not anti-science. I am pro-science. If you're pro-organic food, if you're pro-anti-GM, you are pro-science. So I decided in the party to promote a policy that we would oppose this anti-science technology. I got it to conference and they kicked it into touch. I got it to conference again and they kicked it into touch. For the third time I said, you must do something about this. I set up a working party. I sat on that working party, which also had so-called academics on it. And the academics were arguing that they were talking about this ridiculous rubbish about that you can plant GM crops and you put a contamination zone of 1 meter around it and everything will be fine. I'm sorry, even primary school children will tell you pollen travels miles. Primary school children will tell you that bees pollinate for miles from a crop, and yet we had university professors telling this working party, sitting on this Lib Dem working party, telling us that a 1 meter contamination zone would solve the problem. It was nuts. But we pursued and we actually set through that policy for 2 years, and we got a very good anti-GM policy adopted by that working party. It went to the National Policy Committee, and normally I don't attend that because it's supposed to be only for people who are members of the committee, and I turned up at it because I was so interested in it. I was passionate. I'd been pursuing it for 4 years. I thought I must be there when the final policy was approved for conference. I turned up, and who happened to be there and was given speaking privileges? A former Lib Dem MEP called Peter Price. Peter Price, when he stood down as an MP, was hired by the GM industry to be a lobbyist for them. And he's using his inside contacts within the Liberal Democrats to address the policy committee to try and suppress the policy we got through democratically. That is how the system works. It did go to conference and we won. Lib Dem policy was to oppose GM crops being planted in the outside in the environment so that it could not contaminate other crops. So what happened when they got elected? David Heath is a Lib Dem Minister for Agriculture. And what did he do? He actually advocated GM and actually pushed GM policy through at European level and overturned the former very positive policy of the European Union to ban crops across Europe. And so now the GM policy has been adopted is that individual states can make up their own minds. And that's why we now face a danger in Britain over the next couple of years of planted GM crops. And that's how the corrupted political system is and is operating.